Hey guys, welcome back to Dice Roll Drama. Look, I try really hard to keep things positive on this channel. You've seen it with my other reviews. So yes, I had fun at the movies, both times I saw it. But I also had frustrations. I feel like I might tip negative at times, so I'll try to compensate by being funny. Sometimes this movie's team seemed to be having fun, and everyone in my theater was chuckling along with them. That was great. But at other points, they were doing this weird meta, we're in on the joke type of fan service. I'll delve more into that shortly, but that's just not my cup of tea. The best fan service any writer can give their audience is a good story. And in Jurassic's case, giving us real dinos, please. Even on first viewing, I had an moment thinking about seeing a specific scene a second time. And pardon my being sappy, but the people I saw the movie with were probably the highlight. And it hurts to say that about Jurassic. But this time, I think it's best to give you a full movie breakdown before I delve into my thoughts, because we have a lot to unpack. I'll get it out of the way here. You can see the fossils of JP1 in this movie, more so than Fallen Kingdom or Dominion did. And where it works, I love it. But there's times where it's a lot like one of those old paleo arts that thought the Spino was an upright Rex with a sail on its back. There's a difference between following a checklist of writing devices and understanding them, and implementing them well. A spoiler warning from here until whatever the timestamp is in the description. So, starting off, they kinda wrote themselves into a wall, didn't they? And it may be controversial, but I'm almost relieved at the cop-out. We all know Fallen Kingdom released dinos on the world. Dominion tried putting them on a reserve. Here, they're pretty much all gone. So much for that. You can't put it back in the box. Did Malcolm say that? Just in case he didn't. So much for life finds a way. But, in actuality, this got on my nerves immediately. But then later, I realized it kinda spared me from having to sit through Jurassic trauma farming their dinos via tasers again, so I'll take what I can get. Anyway, we do actually open like Stranger Things Season 3 after all. A secret lab, evil scientists, etc. Just a quick note, but how do so many of the hybrids in the Jurassic spin-off games look more canon appropriate than the Mutodons, the two-headed trike, and the Kaijusaurus we see in this scene? Odd. This movie has a lot of advertising too, and I say that as a positive and a negative. Mostly a negative, but I can always appreciate some comedy. It's hilarious that Snickers was willing to put their name on the culprit of the movie's inciting disaster. But that's the only one where the product placement had me laughing, and it's not like they were trying to be funny with that. That was a serious scene. Anyway, the others are just there. I don't mind them too much, because you would need background props anyway. And the only plot-relevant one was a nameless brand of licorice. It got nothing there. I guess the Altoids jump scare was supposed to be funny, but the sound of chewing, swallowing, etc., no matter the context, makes my skin crawl. But hey, at least we didn't see a Starbucks cup in this one. Props for that. Anyway, in modern day, their mission premise is decent at a baseline, I think. Their science has always been a little fantastical, so I'll be lenient. It gets the job done. We want to make a medication that deals with heart disease. Let's research some of the biggest animals on the planet with incredible lifespans. I mean, my heart goes out to the poor blue whale who fits the bill and was apparently forgotten. Keep it simple, perchance? But to be fair, dino movie, it's not an actual gripe. My actual gripe is with a hilarious logical mistake this later leads to. Also, shout out to my friend for catching a couple things I missed. And the writers, or maybe executives, don't trust us at all, or I guess don't think highly of our intelligence, huh? I noticed it when Henry wouldn't shut up about the messaging. Malcolm material check. But I didn't even blink at what A, Bronto Billy is an Apatosaurus, and B, the Mosa and Quets aren't dinos. They're marine and flying reptiles, respectively. They tricked me with that one, probably because I'm so used to Jurassic getting the latter wrong that it passed over my head. It did not pass over my friend's head. Anyway, Henry spends like half a minute crunching breath mints, deep in thought, until Zora's like, "You ready?" And we finally get to move on. Zora and the others meet up with Duncan, they're old friends, as it turns out, and they have this goofy little ploy to get more money from... Sorry, what was this villain's name? Krebs? Crabs? Cribs? This movie needs some titles sometimes. Mr. Krabs feels appropriate. I'd care to look it up if I wasn't going to forget about him in less than a month. I've got to give a shout out to the set designers though. Someone had a retro dino animation playing on the TV in the background, and look, it's a given, it's easy, but I don't care. I am all for that. I love little details like that. Once they're on the boat, we have our average dialogue just getting to know everyone. And then there's a scene where we think some Spinos are going to square off with a sailboat. Although Amosa gets to it before them. But hey, I'm all for secret puns. Sail to dinos versus a sailboat. But the dad has beef with his daughter's boyfriend for being lazy. The little kid just hates dinosaurs. You know what? That did feel like the original Jurassic Park in a good way. Everyone gets a somewhat shallow, straightforward arc, but you don't feel empty for it. Except Zora. My mom summed it up perfectly. She's not bad enough to deserve her redemption arc. In fact, the way she and Henry talk to each other at the start, this feels more appropriate to the middle or late stage of a redemption. That's my one point of criticism with her character, though. She and Duncan play the mercenary with a good core trope really well. Cool, competent, self-aware, sometimes fun or funny. Zora saved some of Henry's budget Malcolm moments, especially the first one. Zora leads him along for a few minutes before shutting down his little speech. And then that night, one of the movie's weirdest missteps occurs. So Henry and Zora are chatting. Henry says he's never been endangered in a specific way before, and Zora says there's still time for that, and I made a mental note to give the movie a shout out for its foreshadowing. Guess what doesn't happen? Those two lines in question actually mean nothing. But plot-wise, the sailboat attack explains why a child will be accompanying our heroes on an expedition on an extremely dangerous island. Which, yep, they earn the quote marks because after they rescue the family, they just want to casually continue their mission. Oh, but there is one thing I should clear up. This isn't on any of Los Cinco Muertes islands, but it's still owned by InGen. Or, it has a bunch of their pipes. I guess InGen was a construction company after all. Shout out to the team for one thing. They definitely read the books, and the small nods were great. Anyway, the action is a lot of fun for most of this movie. The Mosa mess seems to be a Jaws reference, and I don't say mess like the scene was bad, but, in universe, this situation went off the rails really fast. They really wanted to show off the Mosa, I think. The scene was probably like 15 to 20 minutes, although sometimes it stretches believability just a little bit. Every single person on that boat flops on or over the railing when the Mosa and Spinos attack. And almost everyone gets an individual shot dedicated to it. To be fair, I guess it's kind of realistic. Rough surf isn't too fun, no matter how good you are at balancing. Plus, we all know it's supposed to be this tense, oh no, who's about to get chomped? But it was kind of boring instead because it's pretty much the same action being repeated a few times. I probably would have preferred some of that time get slated for the Titanos. Anyway, they get on the island, and I really feel for the writers, believe me, but I'm also shaking my head at them just a little bit. They call out what everyone in the fandom likes to joke about. A kid on a dino island? Seriously? Twice, actually. And they try to build a clever plot to justify the call out. It seems like something happened to Duncan's kid at some point, probably because of his mercenary lifestyle. But it's just, that is where they drop it. They don't do anything else with his backstory except to inform one of his decisions later. Also, geez, when did this franchise become so spiteful? People were bored of dinos. We were just giving the audience what they wanted. Wow. That's a way to describe fan service executives. You give us what we want without understanding it, and then get mad when people don't really like it. Sorry to get caught up on that line, but that's their explanation for the Mutadons. They were made during the Jurassic World era because park goers got bored of dinos. Oh, and this group lost 2 people to Spinos. Tina and the guy that Henry started whining at earlier. Anyway, the family regroups, and the mercenaries and Henry and Mr. Krabs regroup separately, and the latter goes to get the Titanosaur DNA. They also get scared by a Labyrinthodontia briefly, but this is literally just a repeat of Dominion's Pyroraptor. It's there for show. Although, credit where it's due, it gets more screen time. It's obviously just a background dino, which I really wouldn't mind, except that they hyped it up during the first river sequence. Although, fine, that was clever marketing. I feel so bad for that dude. I might make a toy version for my desk. Anyway, something's following them in the river, then it dips, and then we see these awesome amphibians chilling by a couple of rivers. They're nice, but it's kind of a weird choice. Back with the family, Reuben, the dad, isn't very moved when learning Mr. Krabs tried to off his daughter. But I guess he's heard it a few times at this point. I don't know, he's too busy disapproving of her boyfriend, Xavier. Not sure how to feel about that. Anyway, with the other group, Mr. Krabs stops for water and finds a means to sabotage the group later and steals it, which connects to Henry's earlier foreshadowing line. So that's 2 moments that turn up short. This movie is somehow playing it safer and trying to be more intense than its predecessors. Anyway, with the family, Bella, the little kid, bonds with the Aquilops, and Reuben and Xavier chat. Reuben likes that Xavier's been stepping up a lot more, but it turns out Xavier has low self-esteem. And then we get that scene I mentioned earlier. Xavier goes to relieve himself, starts getting stalked by raptors, and then a Mutadon swoops in to save the day, and it flies off with the raptor. And, okay, this one's on me. Before the movie came out, I was coping by saying, surely those wings are vestigial. Nope. Jurassic has dragons now. Anyways, the Titanosaur Valley has the mint chewing jump scare advertisement. They built up this whole scene like an, it's all grass type line. So I guess this would count as foreshadowing too, to a lesser extent. Where they're like, we should be scared of the thing that hunts Titanosaurs. Why, yes, you should be scared of, was that Rex's in real life? It doesn't matter. We don't see any of said scary dinos. They built all that up only to have the whole moment go off without a hitch. Also, Henry's got this weird moving moment of petting the Titano's leg, trying to distract it, only for it to not even feel him petting it, or the dart for that matter. Plus, the Titano was already distracted, presumably trying to woo his lady friend. I did like the pterosaurs hitching a ride on the Titano's back, though. That was cool. And we do get a gorgeous shot of all of them migrating. I would absolutely use that as a wallpaper. Overall, actually, the movie has a ton of great cinematography. Most of the time, it's a visual treat, even when it's not being a narrative one. But anyway, the Quetz mission and River Chase are next. I liked both. Starting off, the family falls down a cliff. Whew. You know, this movie keeps forgetting Ruben's leg or knee is like broken or dislocated, but I haven't. And yeah, adrenaline is crazy, but him putting his full weight on that injury most of the time is painful to watch. That may be the most stressful thing in this movie. I would not want to see his x-ray results. So, they want to get a boat, and Teresa, the teenage daughter, swims across a river. She then has to face off against a Dilo for all of half a minute, and then it gets scared because of a sleeping, weirdly rendered Rex. I won't criticize them too hard for that one. It might have just been the lighting or a consequence of realistifying the dinos, but he looked less lizard-y and more like leather-y. He doesn't look leathery per se, but that's how my brain said petting him would feel like. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't want to say something looks off without elaborating, because that doesn't seem fair. Anyway, I loved the visual of the raft popping up in front of the Rex and him being gone when it falls back down. So they escape the Rex and then continue their journey. And then we have the Quetz mission. So Henry, Zora, and Leclerc, the only surviving side character thus far, descend the cliff. Duncan and Mr. Krabs hang out at the top. The ugliest Orognathus you have ever seen, as bald as a Sphinx cat, completely lime green, and I mistook it for a hybrid, ends up alerting to Duncan to an alternate route to the Quetz ruins. If you're curious, Orognathus is supposed to be a fuzzy little guy. Anyway, Henry fumbles his way down the cliff, and he and Zora enter the ruins, while the duo sacrifices Leclerc. Well, he sacrifices himself, but because of their bad decision. They tell him to go prepare the rock wall so they can climb back up, but the noise summons the Quetzalcoatlus, who tries to defend its nest from them. Leclerc baits it into chasing him, and Duncan and Mr. Krabs try to save him, but the Quetzalcoatlus catches up. And pardon me for how sketchy this is going to sound, he goes out in a way that fits right in with the older franchise. Horrifying, shocking, a bit absurd. Well done. Anyway, Henry falls off a cliff, belly flopping into water that's way too shallow, but he's fine. The movie is peppered with scaling issues, most minor, but we do get one during his fall, with a couple cycad branches being way too big for how thin their trunks are, that deserved a shout out. Unless the plants are mutated too? Anyway, Leclerc lost his life for nothing, because they just take the ruin stairs to get down the cliff. But hey, shout out to the film team here. They take a moment to breathe as things are winding down, and they show us a close-up of Duncan's face when the group finally has time to process losing their friend. So everybody's finally ready to get off this island, and they all stumble into each other at the rendezvous point. And the whole team hates Mr. Krabs now. I mean, Zora kinda suspected him from the beginning, but literally no one is fooled by this psychopath. Make of that what you will. We get a solid one-liner that YouTube probably won't want me to say. And then we have a town sequence with the Mutadons. The dragon things. Dracorex is taken. How about Dracoraptors? Here is where the split perspectives gets more disjointed than a history textbook you need Control F to navigate. Zora and the villain are hiding under a jeep, dealing with a Dracoraptor. The villain gets pushed into the open, and the Dracoraptor is practically standing on top of him, not seeing him. He's in front of a gas pump, and it's just a few feet away. But time freezes. Anyway, the second Draco-Raptor harasses the family in the gas station store. Meanwhile, Duncan and Henry make their way to the cloning facilities and then split up. We go back to the store, and the group escapes and goes to hide in the sewers, or drainage tunnels. And then we're back to Zora, and the Mutodon is still next to the gas pump. The villain is still exposed. And fine somehow. Anyway, he gets into the Jeep and nearly runs over Zora in his escape attempt. But she's fine and she goes to hide in the bushes. Henry is able to signal the copter with some flares on top of something that looks like Raptor Paddock 2.0. Cue the Kaijusaurus chomping the copter, and cue a scaling issue with the teeth, where they're like way too big proportionally to this thing's mouth as they're poking through the metal. And look, this thing was getting listed as bigger than a T-Rex leading up to the movie, but so big that it would look down on a Giganotosaurus? Something's not computing. Now, the good guys finally converge in these tunnels, and they go for a boat. Mr. Krabs is also heading for said boat. His Jeep might be the best character in this movie. Max speed exceeded. Slow down. Pedestrian ahead. And said pedestrian is the Kaijusaurus. Surprise reveal, Bella can fit through the gate to the tunnels, so she can get to the other side and open it. I guess that's the whole reason she's on the island. Mr. Krabs gets eaten by the Kaijusaurus when he drives into its legs. Everyone else gets onto the dock. We get the most annoying, drawn-out, fake-out sacrifice from Duncan ever, but well done selling the emotion. I guess that's a positive. Zora was unshakable for most of this movie, but when she thought she lost Duncan, it completely threw her off. She spent most of the plot being the first to push ahead, and here she actually just freezes. I'm glad Duncan survived, but honestly, if they had actually sacrificed him, like it looked like they were going to, that would have qualified for the Darwin Awards. The death would have been that pointless. Anyway, they are in an inflatable boat and being left alone by the Spinos and Mosa, but, you know, end of the movie, so I'll give that one a pass. The ending was pretty and maybe a little plagiarized. Classic Jurassic music, dolphins instead of pelicans, boat instead of a helicopter, but it definitely evokes the original. They say they're gonna open source the DNA they stole, so sequel bait, I guess, out for the mass release of Quetzalcoatlus, Mosasaurus, and Titanosaurus on the world, but otherwise, it doesn't matter. You're not open sourcing the medicine itself. Whoever develops the life-saving medication first is still going to get a patent on it. It will still end up overpriced. Also, some fun fact insight on that from my medical terminology textbook, if you want it. As it turns out, the goal is to help recover how much a company spends on research and development of said medication. It's usually a lot more than you would think. So, the film would get more mileage if it was trying to say that we should base patent durability on how much money a company makes in a given year, have they recovered their costs yet or not, rather than a strict time period. Although, they still couldn't have said that with the plot direction they went in, so I'm a little confused. Anyway, I have mixed feelings on the film, but hey, at least I had fun with this. Overall, I think my disappointment was doubled by the movie's marketing. I heard a lot of chatter about it'll be a revival of the franchise, and it'll be more like the old days of Jurassic Park 1, and we're finally getting that raft scene that was cut from the first movie. And then they go and make the same mistakes that makes modern Jurassic so hard to swallow. They want to be like Jaws, a fun animal flick with lots of action and scares. But they also think they need some rock-solid message. They want to be deep and smart. The next Mitchells versus the Machines, if you will. But they don't need to be. I would not be upset at them for just being chaotic creature features. But when I can see them trying to do more than that, yeah, my attention gets pulled a bit. In pursuing their goal, they end up tripping on both fronts. It just slow down, please. And I mean, what's with the hybrids? Can someone please explain that? We were told Fallen Kingdom was the end of them. And yeah, Camp Cretaceous broke that, but they were set before Jurassic World 2, so it was plausible, passable, even. But they're also pointless. I couldn't find any Mutadon merch releasing within the next year. So why does this thing exist? And don't get me started on Kaijusaurus, please. It has the same problem in reverse. It's all over the marketing, but then barely exists in the movie, which is probably good. The less I see of it, the happier I am. But Mattel's already got like 3 different Kaijusaurus toys, so they clearly wanted it to be the star of the show. And we of course need the useless merch bait for all the kids going to see a PG-13 movie. Dolores the Aquilops. Probably should have called it Dolores, because we all know why you made it Universal. Fine, she's adorable. And she's not as bad as Angel or Rebel, because she's actually useful for the little kid's arc. And I like that she's an adult. My gosh, Small Dino's finally getting some spotlight. But the real question, can you fix this? I guess maybe. For an overhaul fix, keep the Dino Apocalypse like it was at the start of Dominion, when it was interesting. And make Rebirth a story about a trio who are sent to an island to scout it out and decide if it's safe for building one of those sanctuaries that Chaos Theory mentioned. But it turns out this is some kind of InGen island that they didn't tell people about, and spoiler alert, it's not safe. I would love that. But if you did have an issue with changing it that much, this would be pretty implausible too, but why not have something where Zora and Duncan befriended some medical folks, and they offer to multiple medical companies, hey, why don't we get you some dino DNA? But we need some help funding our mission. Planning to go and give it to the highest bidder. They proceed to go to Henry to learn about the biggest reptiles, and decide they want to bring him along. Then, after their mission, the sabotage thing happens when representatives from multiple companies who put money into this expedition are sour at getting scammed. And this open source thing becomes, we'll give a cut to all our investors. Basically a big lesson about honesty and sharing is caring in a really fun way. Because, come on, these guys are scammers at the start of the movie, so why not? Lean into it. Now, what would I want to see from the franchise moving forward? Because I'll give them one thing. They're stubborn. And they're successful. They are not going anywhere. Man, I don't know. Yes, Rebirth did some things better than its recent predecessors, and in some ways it felt more faithful to the original story, but I can't imagine how this is going to continue. Probably following this mutated dinos and hybrid spam thread, probably ignoring all the awesome dinos that totally deserve a movie. And the real dinos are what I want to see. And other Jurassic fans that I've talked to as well. I feel like the only people who want to keep going in this direction are the execs. I mean, look how much identity they've lost. Realistic dinos, because they were popular in Prehistoric Planet. These weird hybrids, because they were popular in Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom. And even Chaos Theory's fan service that blatantly misunderstands the fans they are pandering to. And even that intro, no one cares about dinos anymore? And then the film isn't about disapproving that? What? Oh, or we were just giving the audience what they wanted. It's weird. It feels like the writers are looking at us when they say that. Early Camp Cretaceous even felt more true to the spirit of the original Jurassic Park than so much of what we got. Even Rebirth, believe it or not, which is sad when the show that can't show somebody getting eaten is more of a thriller. I don't know, maybe they should cool it with the movies? Maybe the pacing requirements overwhelmed them? Maybe just stick to TV series for now? So, I'll stick around, and I've got a few other deep dives planned at some point for Jurassic content. Plus, if something new comes out, always gonna go see it and make a review. But I'm probably gonna start looking into making my own dino stories now instead. I can't imagine the future of Jurassic anymore. Even when they unleashed a dino apocalypse, I still believed in them. I guess I'll end with a writing prompt in case anyone wants it. It's entirely possible to tell a cool mid or post apocalypse story. There's a reason it's so popular. But is it possible to tell a cool story about a post apocalyptic world that has barely changed pre and post apocalypse? Thank you, and have a good night.